Awesome. Hey, Melissa, welcome on. And yeah, thanks for joining me today. How's things going in your side of the world?
Oh, beautiful, summery, and I'm loving the sunshine.
Yeah, it's awesome. We often chat on, and we did just before, and how funny it is, like polar opposite sides of the world, pretty much. So we're in opposite seasons, but always so much fun to go back and forth. And we got a super cool conversation today. I know both you and I are very excited about this one. So it's I guess, a couple of topics that we don't feel have been spoken about a whole lot in the German new medicine world, but both you and I have experienced some similar experiences with them. So we're going to chat on the 5 biological laws, the quintessence, sort of how we came to find GNM, but in a broader sense, what GNM has meant for us in our lives outside of just resolving the physical symptoms. So we're going to go a little bit deep today, kind of get a little bit woo-woo, which I know is outside of the normal GNM box, but let's jump into it. So how did you come across German medicine? And yeah, what was the real convincer moment for you? When did you go, oh my gosh, there's something here?
So for me, I came across it randomly listening to a podcast. I was researching magnesium supplementation, and Dr. Carolyn Dean was being interviewed, and the person interviewing her asked her about cancer, and she just very briefly mentioned German new medicine. And I was like, I've never heard of this. And so I was very intrigued and looked it up, and immediately I was like, yes. Yes, absolutely. It clicked, with just the story and then seeing the bigger picture. Immediately there was just a resonance. There was just a yes, I totally get this. Coming from the background of chiropractic, many people may not be aware, is very philosophically based, and the developers of it talked about a lot of weird stuff. They talked about innate intelligence and universal intelligence and the wisdom of the body and how the body doesn't make mistakes. And so I already kind of had that background. I actually had a very a very amazing epiphany while reading chiropractic literature about just kind of oneness and healing and wisdom. And it was just kind of this blissed out moment of realizing it. And I kind of had that again with GNM, of seeing meaningfulness, the depth of meaningfulness, because in the world that I had been in, I still had a little bit of, the zit is punishment for eating sugar or it's punishment for not having my probiotics. And so there was still a little bit of, I can make an error and I can, give bad instructions to my body. My body can still, express a symptom that is something as a result of doing something wrong. But it was after learning GNM, seeing it clicked. And then in my own body, the first thing was a zit. It was something that had plagued me for a long time. And I thought of it in a certain frame of mind of cause and effect, but seeing this as the effect of an experience of the conflict shock, that's when it just sunk in. And I was like, absolutely, this is how it works. And then I had a few other symptoms the summer after I first learned GNM. And it was just absolutely cemented for me as this is how biology functions. How about you?
Yeah, totally. So that resonance piece that you mentioned there was very much for me as well. Like the moment I heard it, I was like, this is it. This is everything. This is everything that I had intuitively known and felt for my whole life, but not had a proper language to put to. And so I describe it like coming home for me. It was very much like, yeah, boom, okay. And then I do have a brain though that's like, I want to know why and how and all the different things. So as much as I was like, yes, I was also like, let me explore this. Back up 1 second. I need to test this. So yeah, I went to like work straight away testing it and studying it and just like completely immersed in it, which was amazing. And it kind of landed in my lap as well, in terms of, yeah, it's just someone mentioned it in a fleeting conversation as well. And I was like, that, I need to follow that. What is that? Tell me more. It was when I was actually introduced to prolonged or extended fasting as well. So the two kind of happened together for me. And then, yeah, it was a series of convincers for me. So I think the first thing I really started to notice was that no one in our family got sick at the same time. And, things that were supposed to be so contagious, or these different elements that just weren't fitting. And especially as we dug deeper into GNM and understood it more, I noticed more and more that, yeah, we were never sick at the same time. It was always like one person. And then in my brain, of course, I was like, oh, so they've had an experience. It's not that they have something we can catch. They've had an experience and that's theirs. It's not mine. Definitely when I started to get into the musculoskeletal programs, that was a massive convincer for me as well, seeing changes like happening so fast when full resolution came into those programs, and very distinctly by the themes that are, shown in German new medicine. And then the biggest convincer for me was actually, and I will touch on this a bit later on in this conversation as well, but it was around a sexual trauma that I experienced when I was a child. And I think we've actually conversed on this before briefly as well. There's actually, I wrote on this, I co-authored a book recently called Rising Matriarch, Stories of Women Who Remember Their Truth and Power. And I write on this in my chapter in that book of my experience as a child. And I went into what I was deep enough in German new medicine that I knew I had crossed over into some sort of a healing phase with the trauma that I experienced around that time as an adult. And so I kind of followed it, and I had really, really intense symptoms associated with this program, actually looking back for a lifetime, but very intensely for 2 years running. It was really intense. But literally the day, and I remember the moment when I brought complete resolution to this program, and it was like something just totally lifted. And the very next day, so that happened in the evening, the very next day, my symptoms were all gone, completely gone. Program wrapped up, totally finished. And this was something that I'd had for 2 years. And so like I said, I'll touch on the relevance of that again a bit later in the conversation, but that was definitely the moment I went, okay, this is for real.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So that's mine. So from there, let's go into touching on the fifth biological law, the quintessence. And we mentioned sort of like, often by the time we get through laws 1 to 5, this is like the tail piece, the end piece that kind of gets dropped off the radar a little bit. But let's start here, because I actually think this is a super fascinating law. And I think there's a lot more to it than just the statements that are around it. So the fifth biological law is the law of quintessence. And Dr. Harmer said here, every so-called disease is part of a significant biological special program of nature, comprehensible in the context of our evolution. And in addition to that, nothing in nature is meaningless, malignant, or diseased. Do you want to give us your spin on that and what that fifth biological law has meant for you, both personally and in your consultations and your work with German new medicine?
Yeah, so the essence of being this creature who evolved with intelligence, and that everything is deliberate, that there is no mistake, because that is the realm of materialism, the realm of allopathy, the realm of outside in, fixing problems that were just this mistake of nature that happens to be here, and that things are random and things can go wrong and cells can replicate out of control and there can be little bugs that get in and make us sick. That is the realm of materialism that does not recognize the quintessence. It doesn't recognize this deep wisdom that is in absolutely everything in nature, that there is magic here. And when you recognize the magic in nature, you naturally see it in everything. Like the microcosm is the same as the macrocosm. And so these universal laws and principles, I feel like, are encompassed in the quintessence. It's this wisdom that is woven into literally every aspect of our reality. Nothing is wrong here. And if you pay attention to nature long enough, you will see perfection, beauty, symmetry, laws. And that's what the quintessence is to me, is the perfection that is everywhere, woven into absolutely everything. There's nothing outside of it. And so it's kind of God in a sense, what people look at and call God, which is this brilliant wisdom that is innately woven into every nook and cranny of existence. And so it's big. And by recognizing it and seeing that in yourself, that this body, this expression has all of that wisdom woven into it, you start to revere it and you start to want to understand it. And when you can start seeing your symptoms through that lens of perfection rather than the lens of wrongness, error, disease, brokenness, just mechanistic randomness. We're, on a rock floating, just these meat suits, everything's so random and pointless, to everything is meaningful, everything is intelligent, and the recognition of it will change your life. So that's what it is to me. How about you?
Yeah, totally. And you and I speak a very similar language, so you've kind of nailed it there. And yeah, I guess just in addition to that, for me, it really is about, I guess the way I describe it is like divine timing and order. It's like both physically, there is nothing wrong. There are no mistakes here. And I think Dr. Harmer, from what I understand, he tried to keep things very scientifically based and very technical, because he was very intent on having this recognized by the mainstream medical body, right? But the quintessence for me actually does go a lot deeper than just our physical symptoms and programs. So yes, none of our physical symptoms and programs are a sign that things are wrong or broken, like you said. Like there is absolutely divine order in all of them. A body that stores weight is not problematic, it's for a reason. A body that shows a rash is not problematic, it's for a reason. And we see reasoning behind all of our symptoms, but also strip it down an extra layer. And what I found is that it's like the thing behind the thing here. So the program, the event, the trauma, the shock behind the program that produces the symptom also has just this phenomenal divine order and timing in our lives as well. And in German medicine, we can use the symptoms to like determine the themes, and then we work with the themes to resolve the symptoms, right? But I also think that and we often call it a roadmap, but I also find that it's a roadmap to not only healing the physical symptoms, but to healing so many different other elements in our lives in terms of personal growth and evolution. So for me, that's very woven into the quintessence and the fifth biological law as well. Like it's not just about the physical symptoms for me. And what I've seen in my clients and myself personally in terms of personal growth and evolution is just like, it's mind-blowing, right? It's so mind-blowing. So yeah, all of that is wrapped up into the quintessence for me, alongside just there's no division between us and nature. We are nature, and nothing in nature is meaningless, malignant, or diseased, right? She knows what she's doing exactly the same as our bodies, and our spirit and our, whatever you want to call it, whatever it is for you, knows exactly what's going on as well. Like there is order to this. So yeah, that's, I guess, the deeper layer of the quintessence for me there as well.
Totally. Yeah, that the evolution piece. And I really do think that as a culture, because we're stuck in materialism, we have halted evolution. And when you actually think about like the second biological law and the law of two phases and how that shows up everywhere, I feel like everybody is, if you are stuck in any area of life, chronic symptoms, chronic relationship problems, chronic life problems that have gone on through generations in your family, there is something, it's a hanging healing. You are kind of existentially in a hanging healing. And every time you get up to the epicrisis, if you back down, if you don't go through it, it's kind of like the rite of passage. It's like the big squeeze, it's giving birth. And so many people have aborted dreams. We have, you're not getting through that big, and people, we fear it. And so because we have been taught to fear pain, we've been taught to fear giving birth, we've been taught to fear making these decisions. And so we numb out. And so like we numb out right at the point before the big squeeze, before, we would finish the program, squeeze out the edema, go through that growth, whatever needs to happen, whether it's cleaving from your parents, breaking away from old, patterns and, generational trauma and stuff like that. We get to that point and we take a pill, or we exit somehow and we go back into our hanging healing. And so I've been seeing that so much, which is why this conversation is so timely. I was having these thoughts the other day just about, the programming and the squeeze. And what do you do when you feel squeezed? If you lean, do you lean into it, or do you lean back and say, no, I can't take it. This is too much. I'm not ready for this. And so before we, like, if there's something in your life that you want to birth, everyone is creative. Absolutely every single person is creative. There's a song that you're meant to sing. There's something that you're meant to write. There's a role that you're meant to play. And so much of our lives are distracting us against whatever that inner call is. And so you chicken out. You're like, I'm going to make that video. I'm going to write that book. I'm going to write that play. I'm going to do this thing that's like I'm being called to do. And you find a million distractions. And until you do it, and so that's why this is such a big part, we get distracted because, oh, I've got health problems. Oh, I've got health symptoms. So I can't ever get to my big life project, the thing that I'm meant to do, because I'm so distracted with symptoms and covering symptoms and busying myself with life. And that's why it's one and the same. So we get to the root of your symptom, we look at what's going on, and ultimately it's a dream baby that you haven't birthed yet. And the non-birth of your dream baby is causing you to be symptomatic in many different ways. So that's kind of something that I've been playing with, is that idea of like, what is it that you need to birth? And once you do, you go through that big squeeze, and a lot of your symptoms, probably all of them, will resolve when you kind of get to whatever that core thing is that you're so afraid to go through. You're so afraid to do it, to put yourself out there. But in doing it, the evolution and the growth that will come, you're afraid of it. You're afraid of your next evolution. And so we stay stuck in hanging healing again and again and again.
Yeah. Oh man, that's a juicy one. I love that. And I really do feel like you've just nailed it there as well. So the quintessence, I think, is we can see this on so many different scales, right? So we can see it on the micro, and this is probably not even the microest of the micro, right? But with our symptoms, then we can see it in personal growth and evolution. And then if I jump up here and just throw something really random in, I suspect this is actually potentially what we're seeing right now. Like, we're filming this in May 2021. It's been a really interesting year, nearly 2 now, right? And I actually feel like on some level, on some scale, what we're seeing is an opportunity to go through an epic crisis right now on a global scale as humanity. Like, we've been in conflict activity for a very long time. We've kind of, started to tinker in PCLA, first phase of healing. And what's happening right now is really, really intense for a lot of people. And we're being given an opportunity to go up into that epic crisis and tip over the other side into PCLB. So yeah, I really think like the quintessence is so much bigger than just this little 5th biological law at the end of the GNM principles. Yeah, super cool. Like, we could chat on this for hours, right?
Totally.
Yeah, big conversation. But if we keep it moving, how has finding GNM and working with it really made massive changes? And this is in the realm of personal evolution, right? For you and your clients, what kind of things have you noticed in your life through learning GNM and working with it? How's it been a massive change for you?
Radical self-honesty and radical self-awareness, because, it causes you to need to come face to face with the deep, dark, ugly stuff, because that's the stuff you least want to talk about, the stuff you least want to acknowledge. that's the stuff that's most influential on this like nervous system level. What is lingering in the background? What has gone unaddressed? And so by using this and seeing what symptoms are showing up, there's different levels of our psyche, and there's like the level that's easy to access and the things that that you're dealing with, and then there's the deeper stuff, the things that have become the lens through which you see the world, that there's so much a part of you that you don't even realize that you're seeing the world through the lens of abandonment, because the abandonment happened so early and was so profound and so formative for you that it's just a given. You don't even think to question it because you don't realize that it's a layer through which you're seeing everything. And so by seeing the chronic things, the things that have been around for a really long time, that's revealing to us, the ways in which the trauma, the shock shaped you. And by seeing it through the GNM perspective, through the GHK, we're able to understand this all makes sense. This was all an adaptation. The things that happened to you shaped you in a particular way. And now you, knowing this, get to do whatever you want with it. And so it's that maximum state of empowerment. You are not merely a victim of circumstances. The things that happened to you shaped you, and that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. You can turn whatever crap into the gold of whatever you want it to be. And so it is taking a person from a state of being a victim, being disempowered, being, someone who's been traumatized, to someone who can alchemize, who can take all of that stuff, see it in a new and different way, and use it for their own growth. And I find so many people that I work with, they want to tell their story. They want it to have meaning, whatever it is they went through, their trauma, their abuse, the things that happened to them as a kid. It's like, how can I take this and use it for good? And so many of them want to teach, they want to share their story in some way. And so I just think that that's so beautiful to be able to see the meaning in it, the depth in it, the humanity in it, of all of the stuff that you've been through in your life, and then to use it for whatever creative, beautiful expression, to take it and compost all of the garbage that has happened to you and then grow something beautiful. And I think that, without this, without the 5 biological laws, without the quintessence, it's kind of a mishmash of different ideas about dis-ease, and the processes of the body are a bit of a mystery when you don't have this knowledge. And so it's everything. And so this time, like you said, and the climate of the world and what's happening, now is the time for people to come into contact with this wisdom, because this is how we move in. This is how we go through, because you have to understand the meaning. If you don't understand the meaning of the epicrisis, it's terrifying, and you'll do anything to make it stop. But when you see this is purposeful, this is meaningful, we need to squeeze in this way to squeeze out the edema and get to the other side. And that's what's happening. And so you have to have this knowledge. If you don't, it's just scary and it's just terrifying, and you just want to make it stop.
Yeah, and we're just going to slide right back into that conflict activity, right?
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. Like, we're really being given an opportunity here. So it's like, hey, what you gonna do with it? You want to go back there, or do you want to move on into the new world now? Like, are we ready? So yeah, super cool. When, if I'm to look at answering the same question, what has GNM provided for me in my life and in my work with clients? It's huge. It's really, really huge. And I come back to that piece of personal growth and evolution, right? And if I come back to the original story, so I went through an abuse situation as a child, but the process I went on, because I followed my symptoms through the GNM roadmap, the process and the journey that took me on was just massive. And then when I came to this piece of full resolution, right, the day that was resolved, like I said, there was this, first of all, massive physical relief. I was like, oh my God. But what it also did was it completely changed the meaning of that event for me, which also in turn meant that the meaning I had created around myself and the belief I had created around myself because of that event, that I had chosen to perceive that event as, changed completely as well. And that just opened up this huge basket of goodness, really. So I won't go too much into it. You can read it in the book if you want. But effectively, the situation that I went through, it wasn't so much the event itself, but it was what I perceived about myself after the event that really held so much like trauma and perceived meaning for me. And that was the piece that when the whole situation came to a resolution and I realized that it was actually nothing like what I had thought it was, or the meaning about myself was nothing like I had led myself to believe. With that came this opening that basically meant I shifted from the depth of it. Really is a shift that happened from feeling like I always had to prove myself and be of value in this world to my value and my worthiness in this world is not based on this event. It completely changed the way I view myself and the way I view the world when I followed my symptoms via the themes in GNM to go back and resolve this core trauma, right? And so that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about through the quintessence, is like, it's not only resolving the physical symptoms, which was amazing, 24 hours later, boom, gone. But yeah, the level of personal growth and evolution that comes with that was just phenomenal. And I think that's that huge value piece that is not often spoken about in GHK and GNM, because we do stay with the science of it, which is amazing. But yeah, there's this whole other layer. And obviously I've witnessed this for myself, and you can imagine the profound effect that shift in consciousness, that shift in perspective of myself has then snowballed right throughout my life and my work with other people and my family and my daughter. And I see it in people I work with as well. So clients, for example, working with someone to help them resolve their fertility challenges, and we follow the themes of GNM, has resulted in beautiful healing of relationships with their partners and with their family and with themselves. If we look at someone who might have self-devaluation issues and showing up in musculoskeletal systems, when we resolve those core issues, there's a huge opening in self-confidence and self-esteem, and that snowballs on to have this amazing effect and impact in their community and in the world. And then things like with my daughter, we've helped her resolve some programs which have led to her having much better, more enjoyable relationships in her classroom with her schoolmates, So yeah, it's just, I think, don't underestimate the impact of learning this. Like, it's one thing to be able to use it to heal in a physical capacity, but the mental, emotional, personal healing and growth and evolution that comes with it is like a whole nother level of goodness as well. So yeah, like we said, I think that's a part of GNM, GHK that's not spoken about a whole lot, but I think it's a really, really important underlying layer of what we're doing and the work we do and the profound changes that this is having and has the potential to have in this world. So yeah, that would be, the impact that it's had on my life. Did you want to add anything in there, or yeah?
No, that was just beautiful. And yeah, the kind of just this transcendent quality of this is everything about what it is to be human. The experiences that we have, the growth that we go through, the personal evolution, it's everything.
Yeah.
And it is, I mean, it's just something that is missed in so many other regards. And if you're not kind of getting at that piece of, that when that meaning changed for you, and when like the shackles of the prison that you were in as a result of that traumatic experience, that's really what it is. It's freedom. It
Yeah.
is freeing ourselves from the shackles of trauma, of things that shocked us and caught us off guard and made us feel small and weak and unimportant and incapable of being in the world. And so our body was just getting this message of adapt, adapt, adapt. It's not safe. You're not safe. It's not okay. And so you have to break out of that. You have to see how strong you are. You have to see how you were free the whole time,
Mm.
but you were caged by meanings. You were caged by tracks and triggers, everything that reminded you, no, you're not enough. No, you're not strong. No, you can't do this because that happened. You're not going to live the life that you want. And so when you're imprisoned in those ideas, it is following the symptoms. You get to be your own detective, figure out what is the theme, what's going on here. And then you find that bigger meaning, and your world blows wide open to a bigger purpose, and you see yourself. You have to finish the story.
Mm.
And so much of this is it's story crafting of your life experience. And so if your story is just around the thing that happened and you haven't written yourself out of it, and that's an exercise I give to the people I work with, is to write yourself out of the story. This is a crappy story. This is something you feel stuck in. It's like you are the author of your experience. And so by, taking hold of this creative capacity that you have for creating a new ending, you get to do that. And then you get to grow something beautiful. And so just all of the elements of it come together in this like spiritual, biological, psychic, mental, amazing thing all put
Quintessence.
together. The quintessence. Exactly. Totally. Yes. I'm so glad that you sparked this conversation, Nellie, because yes, I do think that this is the least talked about biological law, because everyone wants to learn the science, learn about the bacteria, and what's the second all of the tissue levels and all of that, which is amazing, and you need to learn it. But this piece, it's transcendent, and I love it.
Yeah, totally. And you've just touched on two words there as well that I just want to close with. So meaning and freedom. So ironically, or perhaps not, one of my first ever tattoos was based around the word freedom. And that was when I was 19, and I had just no idea how much of a massive part of my life that would become, because that is such a big part of this as well. It is complete freedom. It's freedom from fear, it's personal freedom, it's sovereignty, it's so many things wrapped up in that. And yeah, it's so funny to look at like where I am now and know that tattoo like held so much more meaning for my life to come. And the other one is meaning. And this is a really, really big one. This is perhaps one of the, like if somebody has worked with me, they'll be like, oh yeah, I've heard Billy say that a million times. But one of my sort of most profound learnings through all of this journey, and a place that if we can come to this place, there is complete freedom. Like this is like end game for me, right? And that is that the only meaning something has is the one that you choose to allocate to it. That's it. And if we can get our heads around that, I just think complete freedom, right? That's where it's at. And that is also a part of this quintessence. And when you can shift that, when you can really grasp that, it opens up a whole world of possibility for everything. So yeah, I think that's a super cool chat. Like we said, we could go for hours on this, but I wanted to give everyone like a cool little snippet of this conversation to go and mull over, think about, let it settle in, let it sink in, ask us any questions, and take it where you want to, and see what happens with that conversation. Because yeah, I think there's a lot there. So have fun with it, guys.